Values are the guiding principles that dictate our behavior and our actions. They are the compass that directs our decision-making process and shapes our interactions with others. As a leader, making these values visible is not just about clarity, it's about commitment, time and time again. When values are transparent, communicated frequently, and actively shared by all within an organization, they become the foundation upon which trust is built and culture is formed. So in this video, we're going to dive into the significance of values in the context of leadership. Values are important because they provide a common language and a shared narrative that can unite teams and organizations. When values are not just stated, but are truly visible and truly shared, they create a sense of identity and belonging amongst team members. This shared sense of purpose can drive engagement, motivation, and even business performance. When values are unclear or inconsistently upheld, it can lead to confusion, disengagement, and even breaches in the ethical world. The absence of visible values can undermine the very fabric of an organization, eroding trust and stifling collaboration. The goal is to create an environment where values are not just understood, but they're lived out by every member of the team, creating a robust, resilient, and ethical organization. So let's get into the step-by-step list of things you can do today to make values visible. The first item on the list is to define your core values. This is a foundational process that requires some pretty deep introspection. Your core values are the principles that you hold most dear, or the non-negotiables that really guide your life and your work. These are the essence of who you are when you are at your best. So how do we identify these? Ask yourself a series of questions, such as, what qualities do I admire in others, especially other leaders? What experiences make me feel most alive? And when am I at my happiest? The answers to these questions will point you towards your core values. It could be integrity, compassion, innovation, leadership, whatever it is that resonates with you authentically. Now, it's important to be aware that your core values are your compass. They should be very clear and very concise, providing you direction for decisions and actions. When you're clear about where you stand and what you stand for, you can lead with conviction and inspire others to join you on your journey. This clarity is the first step in making your values not just words on a page, but a living, breathing part of your everyday life and leadership. Step number 2 in making values visible is to communicate your values effectively. Communication of values should be clear, consistent, and continuous. It's not enough to mention them once in passing. No, they should be woven into the fabric of your everyday conversations, your meetings, your behaviors, and even your corporate narratives. Use storytelling to bring your values to life, sharing instances where your values have guided your decisions and your actions. This helps to create a vivid picture for your team and makes the values even more relatable and memorable. Moreover, it's important to listen actively to your team's thoughts about these values. Encourage them to share their own stories and how they see the values playing out in their work. This two-way communication ensures that values are not just a top-down directive, but they are shared, understood, and embraced across the organization. Take note. The goal is not just to inform, but to engage and to inspire. When your team understands and connects intimately with the core values, they are much more likely to embody them, leading to a culture where values are not just visible, but vibrant and vital. Step number 3 in making values visible is to align actions with values. This is where the true test of leadership lies. You see, it's not just enough to simply state what your values are. You must live them out through your actions. Every decision, every interaction, and every commitment you make should be a reflection of the values you hold most dear. To align your actions with your values, start by examining your daily behaviors. Ask yourself if your actions are consistent with your values. If not, identify the gaps and make the necessary adjustments. It's also crucial to set an example for others by being a role model for value-based behavior. When your team sees you living out your values, they are much more likely to follow suit. Additionally, consider the systems and processes within your organization. Aligning actions with values means embedding those values into every aspect of the organization, from the way you conduct meetings all the way to the way that you evaluate performance. You'll quickly discover that alignment is an ongoing and iterative process. It requires constant vigilance and a willingness to make tough choices. But when your actions and your values are in sync, you build credibility, trust, and a strong values-driven culture. Step 4 in making values visible is to institutionalize values within the organization. This means embedding your core values into every system and process that shapes the business. It's about creating structures that reinforce the values and make them a part of the organizational DNA. To institutionalize values, start by examining your company's policies, procedures, and practices. Ensure that they reflect the values that you've articulated. For instance, if one of your core values is respect, then your HR policies should promote diversity and inclusion, and your customer service protocols should reflect courtesy and understanding. Institutionalizing values also means integrating them into your reward system. Recognize and celebrate employees who demonstrate their values in their work. This could be through formal awards, promotions, or even simple acknowledgments in team meetings. Finally, ensure that your leadership development programs teach and reinforce these values. Leaders at all levels should understand how to live and lead in ways that reflect the organization's core values. By institutionalizing these values, you ensure that they are more than just words on a page. They become the guiding principles for how your organization operates and how your people behave every day. Step number 5 in making values visible is to recognize and reward value-aligned behaviors. This is a critical step in reinforcing the importance of the values you've communicated and are striving to live by. When you acknowledge and celebrate the actions of team members who exemplify your organization's values, you're not only encouraging those individuals, but you're setting a very clear example for others. Now, recognition may take many forms, from public acknowledgments in meetings to formal awards or even informal praise. The key is to ensure that the recognition is sincere, it's timely, and it is directly tied to the behaviors that reflect the organization's core values. This positive reinforcement makes it clear that value-aligned actions are noticed, valued, and expected from others. Rewarding value-aligned behaviors can also be part of your organization's formal incentive program. This might look like promotions, bonuses, or other perks that are there explicitly tied to demonstrating values in action. By aligning rewards with values, you send a powerful message about what is truly important for your organization. Now, let's not forget that when people see their efforts to live by the values are appreciated and rewarded, they are much more likely to continue those behaviors and influence their peers to do the same. This creates a virtuous cycle where values are not just aspirational, but are actively lived out in the day-to-day operations of the organization. Step number 6 in making values visible is to lead by example. And this is probably the most powerful step of them all. As a leader, probably know exactly what I mean when I say that you are constantly under a microscope. Your team is looking to you, not just for direction and decision-making, but also for inspiration and role modeling. When you lead by example, you embody the values you wish to see in your organization. And this isn't about grand gestures or big one-off events. It's the little things, the consistent thing. It's about the small, everyday actions that signal to those around you what's truly important. To lead by example, you must be the first to act according to the values you've set. Stay with me here, but if you value innovation, be innovative. If you value integrity, be transparent and honest in all your dealings. If you value respect, show it consistently in how you treat others, because your behavior sets the standard for what is expected and what is possible. As you already know, leading by example is not just about what you do when everyone's watching. It's also about what you do when no one is watching. It's about making the hard choices that align your values even when it's inconvenient, challenging, expensive, and difficult. When you lead by example, you create a culture where values are lived, not just discussed. You become a leader who not only talks the talk, but walks the walk as well. Step number 7 in making values visible is to encourage open dialogue. This step is about fostering an environment where communication flows freely and everyone feels comfortable sharing their thoughts and ideas. As a leader, it's important to create a space where team members can discuss how values are integrated into their work and feel safe to voice concerns when they see values being compromised. And that means both by you and by others. So how do we do this? To encourage open dialogue, actively listen to your team and encourage them to speak up. Show them that you value their input by being receptive and responsive to their ideas. Facilitate discussions that allow for diverse perspectives to be heard and respected. This open exchange of ideas not only reinforces the values, but it also helps to identify areas where the organization and its individuals can improve in showing up with those values each day. Now, recall that open dialogue isn't just about talking. It's also about listening. It's about being understood and understanding others. It's about building trust and showing that you are committed to the values. By encouraging open dialogue, you create a culture of transparency and continuous improvement, where values are not just visible, but they're actively discussed and upheld by everyone in the organization. Step number 8 in making values visible is to reflect and adjust. This step is about taking the time to look back on how well you're living up to your values, as well as making necessary adjustments to improve. Reflection, as we all know, is a powerful tool for growth. It allows you to pause, to assess your actions, and to determine whether or not they align with the values you've set forth for yourself and your organization. To effectively reflect, set aside regular intervals to review your behavior and the behavior of your organization. Ask yourself some powerful questions and share them with your team. Are our actions consistent with our values? Where have we succeeded and where have we fallen short? This process of reflection should be honest, comprehensive, and iterative. After reflection comes the adjustment. If you found that certain actions or policies are not in line with your values, take the steps to correct them. This might mean modifying a process, addressing a behavior, or simply reiterating the importance of a particular value. Adjustments show not that you're failing, they show that you are committed to continuous improvement and that your values are more than just words. They are standards that are actively upheld. It's important to note that the process of reflection and adjustment is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing cycle. It's something you do regularly. It ensures that your values remain a living part of your leadership as well as your organization's culture. By regularly reflecting and adjusting, you demonstrate a commitment to not just maintaining, but enhancing the visibility and the impact of your values. Step number 9 in making values visible is to develop value-based leadership throughout the organization. This involves both training and mentoring current and future leaders to understand, embody, and to promote the organization's core values. As leaders, we must recognize that our influence extends far beyond our immediate actions and decisions. It also lies in how we shape the leadership capabilities of those around us. To develop value-based leadership, start by incorporating values into leadership development programs. Ensure that these programs don't just focus on skills and competencies of leaders, but also on how to lead with values. Encourage leaders at all levels to share the stories of how they've applied the organization's values in their own decision-making, as well as the impact that it's had. Additionally, create opportunities for leaders to practice values-based leadership in a safe environment. This could be through role-playing, simulations, or real-world projects with coaching and feedback. It's important that leaders learn to navigate the complexities of applying values in a diverse range of situations. Now, I encourage you, don't forget, developing value-based leadership is not a one-time event. It's a routine commitment. By investing in leaders who prioritize values, You create a multiplier effect that can transform the entire culture of your organization. This is how you build a legacy of value-based leadership that endures and evolves with the organization. Step number 10 in making values visible is to measure and monitor. This step is about establishing metrics to track how well the organization and its members are living up to the stated values. Say it with me, please. What gets measured gets managed. And by setting up systems to measure adherence to those values, you can ensure that they remain a key focus for the organization. How do we do it? To measure and monitor values, I recommend that you start by identifying key behaviors that exemplify each value. Then develop ways to quantify these behaviors. This could involve surveys, feedback mechanisms, or some other performance data that reflects value-aligned actions. For example, if one of your core values is customer satisfaction, you might track repeat customer rates or customer service feedback scores. Monitoring should also be an ongoing process with regular check-ins to assess progress and identify areas for improvement. Share the results with your team and use them as a basis for discussion and further action. Absolutely, you are encouraged to celebrate successes when values are well demonstrated, as well as to address any discrepancies between the stated values and the observed behaviors. Keep in mind, the goal of measuring and monitoring is not to punish. It's not punitive. It is to promote and encourage value-based actions. By keeping a close eye on how values are lived within the organization, you can maintain a culture that not only espouses its values, but truly embodies them in every aspect of its work. In conclusion, the process of making values visible is a deliberate and ongoing effort that requires dedication from leaders at all levels. It is not just stating what we believe. It is about demonstrating those beliefs through our actions, through our decisions, and through the way that we lead and interact with others. Clearly define your values, communicate them effectively, align actions with the values, institutionalize the values throughout the organization, recognize and reward behaviors that exemplify these values. You yourself can lead by example of these values, encourage open dialogue about them, reflect and adjust your practices, develop other leaders to carry these values forward, and measure adherence to these values. In doing so, you can ensure that they are not just abstract concepts that people listen to and forget. They become tangible guides that inform organizational culture and daily operations. So let's commit to this process and build organizations where values are not only visible, but they are the foundation of everything we do. Making values visible is an integral part of the stakeholder-centered coaching process. As a coach, it's essential to not only understand your own values, but also to help leaders clarify and communicate their values to their stakeholders. In the stakeholder-centered coaching process, leaders work on behavioral changes that are aligned with their values and are visible to and validated by their stakeholders. If you're someone who's passionate about helping leaders make real changes that are congruent with their values, then I encourage you to get certified in stakeholder-centered coaching. This certification will equip you with the tools and methodologies to effectively guide leaders through this process. This is a powerful way to make a significant impact on leaders and their organizations. If you're committed to excellence in coaching and to making a difference, you can join a free training program by visiting mgscc.net/free coach training, or explore our official executive coach certificate programs at mgscc.net/certification. What did you think about today's tips about making values visible? And what else do you want us to teach about? Share your answer in the comments below.